Thank you again for speaking with me for this project. Um, Asian and Pacific Islander American Heritage Month is coming up, so I wanted to do a little interview for a station for members of the community. Members of the community.
Sure. My name is Quan Tran, and I'm a co-chair of the Asian Pacific American Coalition in Connecticut.
And I'm Jenny Hikula Diaz. I also go by GHD, and I'm the other co-chair of the Asian Pacific American Coalition of Connecticut.
Nice to meet you both. Okay, starting with the interview, we'll just go a little bit general, even if it's a little bit self-explanatory. Can you define the term Asian and Pacific Islander American?
Yeah, so it's a
Legislation with
term that come from an older
legislation with
census category that put Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders together. And this term covers communities in the US that trace their roots back to different parts of Asia and the Pacific Island realm. And there are newer terms now for the communities that are expanding, but because we've been around, the Asian Pacific American Coalition has been around since 2006. This is still our current name. But the category of Asian Pacific American, or AAPI, is a category that is in constant flux. And when we talk about AAPI population, we also talk about not just people who have backgrounds or heritage tracing back to those countries in Asia and the Pacific Islands, but also communities that are formed in the US who have mixed race, family backgrounds. So our community is really diverse.
Mhm. What is the correct term now instead of Asian and Pacific Islander that you mentioned? Is there a um I guess a better term, or is it still applicable?
I think that depends who you ask. There's also AANHPI to put visibility on the Native Hawaiian population too. So that's another acronym. We have a PETA. We have a lot of different acronyms, and I would also say that some people within who would maybe check that box on a census form or some kind of demographic data collection may not actually identify that way, even though that is how they are perceived or grouped. Um, I mean, a lot of even doesn't even matter what age group or generation you're talking about. There are folks who identify more connected to the actual country of origin or place that their family is from. I personally identify as biracial, as Korean American, and as Asian American. So I I choose to use multiple terms, but some people don't.
All right. Thank you so much. Within the state, is there what nations do members of the community come from or have ancestry? Is there a larger amount from, let's say, Vietnam, China, Japan, Korea?
Yeah, so Connecticut in general, I think based on the 2020 census, which is also an estimate, there are currently about 200,000 Asian Pacific Americans in the state. And there are larger populations, such as the Indian population, and as you mentioned, the Korean, Vietnamese, Chinese, Filipinos. But our state is quite diverse, and I think every single country in Asia that you can name, we have some forms of communities here. And in terms of Pacific Islanders, right, there are also Native Hawaiians, but as well as Chamorros, and other folks who comprise of that group as well. So again, the diversity is incredibly diverse, also diverse in the sense that some communities may have been here for many generations, tracing their heritage or their arrival to Connecticut, back to the 1800s, and some are recently arrived. So again, this is a very dynamic and continuing to grow community with a lot of diversity.
And are there any particular well-known or famous members of the community, whether in the state or national? Like, let's say outspoken advocates, celebrities, musicians, performers, scholars, etc.
There are many. So, in our contemporary moment, one can name our state attorney general, A.G. Tong. William Tong is someone who has a lot of visibility as a public service person. We also have lots of writers in our state who identify as Asian American or Pacific Islanders. We have scholars, and it's something that people don't know, but we also have people who graduated from all kinds of universities in Connecticut, scholars, doctors. So I mean, lots, and we just try not to choose kind of names. But one thing I'd love to emphasize is that Asian Americans and Pacific Islander in Connecticut have been a long presence, and the work that we do, and maybe JHD can speak more on this, is that the local histories of our communities are very strong. Yeah.
Would you be able to go into that a bit, Jenny?
Sure. Well, I'll first say that, as Quan mentioned, we've been here for quite some time, and that so we have a long history here, even though it is not well known and has intentionally been buried to some degree. And so it's been great to have an Asian American and Pacific Islander studies mandate put into effect. Legislation was passed a few years ago, but it actually this fall. And so there's been many efforts from many people across the state, Asian, American, Pacific Islander, and not, who have been involved in these efforts to ensure that all of our children, including our Asian American and Pacific Islander identifying children, get the opportunity to learn about the many contributions of peoples, and beyond the Heritage Month, right? This would be like a every day of school where we're learning about all the peoples and all the communities of Connecticut that have made us who we are today and will continue to make us an even better place in the future. And just to speak a little bit more to the mandate, sorry, I think there's a delay. Just to speak a little bit more to the mandate, it is a K-12 public school mandate, and it requires the integration of Asian American Pacific Islander studies into schools starting this fall.
Fantastic. I'm glad there's a lot of work going into this. Now, pivoting into your organization, the Asian Pacific American Coalition of Connecticut, or APAC, what does your organization do specifically?
Just
Yeah,
like
so like I mentioned, oh, sorry, JHD.
Sorry. I think I have a delay. I was just going to say, so as Quan mentioned, we were founded as a federalized nonprofit in 2006. And that's not to say there weren't plenty of people in our community who were doing the type of work that we're doing, but as an official organization, our focus is on legislative work, on education work. We do some direct service as well, and lots of advocacy work. which really means that we kind of span a lot of sectors and a lot of issues. And we try to work across the over 100 different Asian American and Pacific Islander organizations in our state in a coalition manner. And then besides working across our Asian American Pacific Islander organizations, we're also constantly working with folks outside of our communities too to build coalition and make sure that we're working together because while there are things that are unique to our communities, there's also plenty of places where there's overlap with issues that you would find in other communities. And then the last thing that I would also, I'm sure Kwan will think of something I didn't say, but the last thing I would emphasize is also that we are an intergenerational organization. So we really are trying to ensure that people across the generations are working together because that is another sort of like cut of diversity within our community that different age groups have different needs. Along with when did your family come to Connecticut? Well, the circumstances and all the other ways that you can think of people as being diverse.
Anything to add,
What I
Quan?
miss, Kwan?
I'm just thinking about doing, community work, meaning community care. So a lot of the things we do, we definitely want to reach out to as many different pockets in our communities as possible and creating opportunities for people to gather, right? Because our populations are scattered all over Connecticut. And even though it's a small state, but I think sometimes it does have the kind of Connecticut problem where people can get siloed in their various towns, and so our job as an umbrella organization is creating opportunities for folks to come together.
All right, and Jenny kind of covered it when the organization was founded, so 2006. Was there a specific
Yes.
founder or group of founders?
Yes, there were a group of founders, co-founders. They are folks who have been in leadership positions and professionals who in 2000 and around the 2000s realized that in order for the AAPI community to have a voice, we need to be more organized and to create a space where our communities can come together and voice concerns, and that we can then have the ability to bring those concerns to our elected officials and to make sure that our community is consulted and that we are visible in the context of things and decisions that are happening in the state that might affect us.
All right, and does APAC have a mission statement?
Yeah, so our statement is to empower our community through what Jenny just said, education, advocacy work, legislative work, civic engagement, and community care.
And going over some of your social media, you have an event that's ongoing called Surrounded by Ghosts. Would you be able to talk about that exhibition?
Oh, that is it's not an exhibition by us. So one of the things that we do is we also promote various events across the states that are put together by, again, various communities, right? So we're kind of centralized space to broadcast those sorts of events. And that particular exhibition that you mentioned is taking place at the CT State Community College in Manchester, is organized by the Common Reads program there and the arts departments there. It's an art exhibit that feature the artwork of three Vietnamese American artists who there's Ocean Vuong, Son Pham, and Tuan Le. And their work are featured together under this thematic of ghosts in the Vietnamese diaspora.
All right. And then what other events or activities has your organization been involved with?
So we we have recently collaborated with, or co-organized rather, with the Connecticut Museum of Culture and History, along with other partners, including CT State's Community College Manchester. I think they just changed the name, so it's a mouthful. But we had a successful Lunar New Year celebration this year. Over 900 people attended. And so that's one of the big events that we do. And then in the meanwhile, we also have, kind of smaller scale events where we address some of the concerns and educational things in our community. And maybe JHD, you can talk a little bit about those.
Sure. Yes, we do many different events. This coming May for Heritage Month, we're co-sponsoring some events, including one at the New Britain Museum of American Art. We're working on that with another Asian American organization called NYASA too. And that event is taking place on May 17th at the museum. It'll include food, culture, art, performances, or like as Quan mentioned, sort of a smaller scale event, really important family-oriented event to share many of the different cultures that fall under the AAPI umbrella. We're also co-sponsoring an event with AAPI Westport, bringing an author, the author of My Documents, to the new library. That is on May 20th. We're also potentially co-sponsoring a film screening. We're just waiting on some of the details for that, so we'll share that on our socials later. And then we do an annual AAPI Studies Ed Symposium in August. Each year we've had a different sort of constituency focus for that event. Last year it was all student-led, and the constituency focus was students, so teachers, parents, and caregivers, and all kinds of folks came to the event as well to learn about the ongoing work for the implementation of the K-12 AAPI studies legislation. We've offered a few AAPI focused mental health events in collaboration with different organizations. Last year, we do community listening sessions throughout the state. Sometimes are also, actually not sometimes, all times, they've been co-sponsored or co-supported by local organizations in the region of the state that we're working in. What am I missing, Quan? Those are some of the things that come to mind right away.
Yeah, and we also do civic engagement related things in terms of helping our communities learning more about the legislative process, thinking about how do they become more engaged citizens in our state. So these are some of the things that we continue to do.
All right, and just a little bit of history. Do you know a bit about when the Heritage Month started in the country and what brought it about?
Yeah, there were calls for celebrating the contributions of our community, and various folks were involved in getting it off the ground. But starting in the late 1970s, there was before that, but in the late 1970s, legislation with official celebrations began. It started as like a multi-day or like a week-long heritage celebration, and then was expanded later to a month-long celebration. Kind of the general overview. I don't know, Quan, if you want to share more details about it.
No, that's fine. But maybe then, let me add that even though, there's a dedicated month, our communities celebrate our heritage all the time, right? Throughout the year, through our different cultural practices. And so, for example, New Year is a concept and it's a celebration, is something that our communities celebrate depending on what ethnic or cultural background different members of our communities are from. So New Year is actually a celebration that stretches, right? From anywhere from the beginning of January until for example, our Hmong community celebrate their New Year in November, right? So these are very different cultural practices that people have brought with them, and each and every single one of our community, the smaller ethnic communities within our umbrella, have their own celebrations all the time. And I think that's part of what makes this work for us so rewarding, is that it's an opportunity for us as well to learn more about the different communities that we may not be familiar with, right? Because again, Asia and the Pacific Islands is just so huge. Again, every week there's some sort of event, and every time we have an event, it's an opportunity for us to learn, to be surprised, right, about just how deeply rooted our communities are, and how committed our community members are in making Connecticut a place as their homes, and continuing to contribute to the growth of this state and the growth of this country.
All right, thank you so much for reaching out, for answering my emails and speaking with me today. Lastly, is there a message or anything you would like to get out to the community?
I think I would add on to what Quan just said, that I am constantly getting invited to new celebrations and ways to interact with the communities that make up our AEPI umbrella here. And it's incredibly joyous and special. And so my children benefit from that too. And I hope legislation across Connecticut tap into those opportunities too, because many of these celebrations are becoming more public, and people are inviting folks outside of their communities to come and to learn, to celebrate with them. So taking advantage of those opportunities to be in community with our community is like those are the things that we need right now, to be hopeful and to be together and to care for each other.
Yeah, and I also wanted to invite people who are not part of our communities to take the time to learn more about us, right? And to not just see us through stereotypes, but to really take the opportunity, and it's not like we're not providing them, right? But because we do, and to take those opportunities to get to know our histories in the state, get to know our presence in the state, and again, what does it mean for us to know that Asian American restaurants, right? It's not a new trend that we in Connecticut just discovered, but in fact, some of the oldest restaurants that are Asian American owned had been around since the turn of the 20th century, right? What does it mean to know that there were also Chinese Americans serving in the Civil War, who are from Connecticut, right? What does it mean to know that there were, some of the earliest students who are of Asian and Pacific descent graduated from, Yale University and had connections, right, to all of these histories that is American history. So something to think about, and again, an opportunity to expand knowledge about our community is something that we would love to do, both for communities that are within the AAPI umbrella, but also beyond that.
All right, and if people want to reach out, where can they do so?
Yeah, so they could follow us on our Facebook page, and feel free to peruse the different kinds of events that we promote for our communities, and yeah, we're happy to connect you.
All right, Thank you so much, both of you, for speaking with me today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you both.
Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, thank you too.